Hello, all you happy pappy people. Welcome to another edition of the Hats Hits IG Live, social media, whatever you want to call this, takeaways show as we review what transpired in high school football on Friday night, September 20th, flipping the calendar over to Saturday, September 21st. As it's now past midnight, Stanford walked off Syracuse in ACC college football. It just sounds so strange to say that, by the way. I actually watched the end of that in an establishment, and I actually missed the overtime finish of the other game that involved two ranked teams in the top 25. Looks like Illinois beat Nebraska in Lincoln. So how about that? Brett Bielema's got the Illini rocking and rolling. But we're here to talk high school football. Although you want to hear more college football talk, join us for 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV, 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. with yours truly and to Coach Edward V, as in Victory, Vincent, and Vicious Young. But let's get to my takeaways from the high school football action on Friday night. I got 5, and I'm gonna anger some folks tonight. I'm in a mood to get people ready to want to fight me, put me in a cage, and beat the stuffings out of me. But let's take them in chronological order before we get to number 4, and I make the area codes around the state, except for one particular area, not even the area I'm from, upset at me. Let's take them in chronological order. There's a lot of big games tonight. My dynamic dozen picks. There was some weeks I'm struggling to find an 11th, 12th game to pick on my little VIP board picks of best in the state. Tonight, there was a few I left off that were good games. And there's some other games outside of this conversation piece that you could certainly, you're always welcome to interact with us. We're on YouTube, we're on IG, all over the place. All right, my man from Breathless, what is the lowest total of yards in the game you have ever heard of in Virginia? Lowest total. Well, I've heard of teams getting negative yards, but those are some games I've been to where it was really good against really bad. I don't want to embarrass which particular team. And off the top of my head, I can't recall which specific one. But between two quality teams, you ask me, probably between 4 and 15 yards, something like that. I mean, it's pretty. I'm sure there's something behind that. But let's take them in here in order of games. I've seen some teams get negative 60 yards rushing. They get sacked 10 times. My number 1 hats hit takeaway, and this doesn't mean 1 is the best and 5 is the second best. Appreciate that. Send me a message. Let me know. But my first one was I went Seminole District. I want to go check out some Seminole District football. I talk with the coaches out there every year, and they brag. They feel like their football is the best. And shout out to Brad Bradley because his team got the big win we're talking about. He actually organized this year a Seminole District Media Day, which every other district should follow his lead and do that. We'll be glad to cover it at virginiapreps.com. He's helping his kids and all other kids get more exposure, notoriety, and it's a good thing to do. Anywho, anyhow, speak with him and Frank Rocco at Liberty Christian and other coaches in the district, EC Glass, Brookville, the list goes on. It's got a good tradition, rich history. Well, last year, Heritage Lynchburg was a little bit on the young side. They got beat in the first round of the playoffs, got beat 11-7, not 7-11. Oh, thank heaven. They don't sponsor this. If they do, I'll give them all kinds of pub and maybe some free coupons for folks that want to go there. 11-7, Jefferson Forest beat Heritage of Lynchburg. Tonight, dogfight, slobber knocker. I think they were down 7-0 early, if I recall, reading it right through the updates on Twitter. And my man Bob Alvis, who I follow, shout out to Bobby, does a great job with the sports buffet and all the coverage out there. They come back and win the game 21-7, and they do it with outstanding defense. They've given up 14 points in 3 games. They're 3-0. It's the first 3-0 start during a full season, not a truncated, condensed pandemic COVID season, since 2017. That year, they played in the state championship and lost, I believe, to Hopewell. The next year, they came back, won the state championship in 2018. And I'm not going to foreshadow and guarantee or make a proclamation that Heritage of Lynchburg is winning the state championship, getting there this year, losing and winning next year. But I'm here to tell you, that's a physical football team that's used to that big boy football in the Seminole. They got better tonight. I'm sure Jefferson Forest is still going to be heard from and good in Class 4. Their quarterback's efficient, Aiden Slash, and they have one of the more underrated receivers. I know I had the conversation a couple weeks ago about best receiver in the state. Dylan Newton-Short gets my pick at the moment from Matoka. Other guys are certainly in the mix. We'll get to that, other future episodes. But Tavion Clark for them, let me tell you something. The kid Clark at Heritage Lynchburg can really, really play. He caught a big 40-yarder in that game. And he's been good since his sophomore year when he got All-State. And they win the game 21-7. Slash at quarterback. He's got ability running and throwing it. And I tell you what, Tavion Clark is under-recruited. There should be more schools on him. If you're out there watching, listening, they should be on him. He's a good player. They get the dub, and away they go. Number 2 on the Hats Hits takeaways. We go from Lynchburg to the beach, 7x7. We're going to go over the state. We're going to go Nova. We're going to go everywhere. Richmond. Number 2, Green Run's known for a prolific passing attack. 37-game Beach District regular season winning streak. They thumped Cox tonight, 34-0. You say, what's the big deal about that? Well, Cox has had a really good defense. Fewest yards and first downs they've given up in several years. They've given up like 101 yards, 115 yards coming in tonight in 3 games, and Green Run just spanked them, held them to 101 yards total, and they unleashed a new weapon. They have the receivers going to Virginia Tech and Knowledge Harrell, Jaden Anderson. Knowledge is actually going to play defensive back, but Charles Jackson, remember that name, running back, class of 2026, 216 yards on the ground. And we'll see if Green Run has the goods to get that next step and win a state championship. They still got Salem in their city and their district to watch out for. But big win tonight. Impressive. They got a lot of talent on that team. Quarterback going to UConn and Kassan Farrar. Some multi-sport athletes. I'm sure someone's going to ask the question and get me in trouble. Well, they're in Class 5. Can Green Run beat Maury? Yes, Green Run can beat Maury in basketball. They did it last year. We'll see if they can do it in football. But they're looking strong right now, and they have to be taken seriously because they continue to obliterate folks in the beach, and that's an impressive score tonight against Cox, who is no slouch. They're going to still win, I think, 7, 8, 9 ball games as Cox, and we'll look back on that score in a couple months and say that was darn impressive. Number 3 tonight on the Hats Hits. Huge win for Glen Allen and the Jaguars. First-year head coach Malik Sexton. Makes me feel old when I see these young guys that are coaching do these turnaround jobs this quickly. He played it. I covered him when he was a quarterback at Churchill. He played at Virginia State. And this was a game I got rolling the picks. I'll eat my crow, put some ketchup on it. Thomas Dale's a perennial contender. And they ended up getting waxed by Glen Allen 28-3. Glen Allen's got some players now. They've sent some guys to the next level. Dallas Chavis is good. This shows that they're not only having their first 4-0 start, but a contender in Region 6A, where you got some teams, Highland Springs had a couple of losses. They bounced back tonight against Douglas Freeman. Oscar Smith looked mighty good from what I saw in the second half defensively against Nansemond River the other night. And they got their offense clicking. Still have a lot of young guys out, some injuries to some players. Sophomore quarterback Lonnie Andrews III, and Glen Allen, they had the coaching change from Perry Jones, who I also covered, went to Oscar Smith and played at the University of Virginia as a running back. He's now an assistant at William & Mary. And Malik Sexton's coming in. They haven't missed a beat. They're just getting better and better. And Glen Allen's one of those schools on the rise. Got a lot of good athletes. And that was one of the more eye-opening wins as far as impressive that took place on this particular evening. Going from the 804 as we go to number 4 on the Hats Hits. This is the one that's going to get people all fired up here. Here we go. Best game of the night. People were looking forward to the Maury Dinwiddie game. It was a 47-7 spanking for Maury of Dinwiddie, who's going to still be good in Class 4. People are going to be saying, what's wrong with Dinwiddie? They're not. People did it last week with Highland Springs. What's wrong with no? Maury's just that good, folks. But number 4, the best game of the night in terms of atmosphere, intensity, excitement, rocking, fans going nuts. I'm sorry. And I'm not taking anything away from the quality of football. I'm not saying you have better athletes in this particular place than you do in Tidewater, Fredericksburg, Nova, Richmond, wherever, Roanoke, Lynchburg. But go out to Big Stone Gap, Bullitt Park, Southwest Virginia. The Graham G-Men, who probably could beat the New York G-Men the way they've been performing in the NFL. Yuck. They don't have Saquon Barkley anymore. They don't have Michael Strahan, OCU Manura, Justin Tuck. They ain't walking through that door. But the Graham G-Men, who had one of their better players, by the way, and Daniel Jennings transfer out before the season. But Tony Palmer, he told me in the offseason he likes his team, 16 starters back, 8 on each side of the ball. They win a close one this evening, 7-6. They get a touchdown in the fourth quarter to pull it out against their rival, the Union Bears, out there in Big Stone Gap. They were 6-6 all-time in the series coming into tonight. They win it. They had, I'm sure, hundreds to thousands of people out there just juiced up from pregame in the parking lot for 2-3 hours before the game starts, listening to it on the radio, watching it on a stream. And listen, the thing about them out there is they appreciate their rivalries in Southwest Virginia better than we do in other parts of the state. I said it. There's a lot of jealousy and envy and hate and a lot of, we don't like you. We don't root for you when you win. We lose it. That goes out the window. They really live and breathe it out there. 4th and goal, touchdown by Gabe Lilly, and Dylan Nash breaks the tie with the extra point. Union had to lead 6-0 in this game in the third quarter, had to lead 6-0 in the first quarter, halftime. Graham didn't score, and Graham had pitched 3 straight shutouts to come in. Union took a loss to a team from Tennessee in Science Hill the week before. They got a bruising back in Keith Chandler. They had one of their better guys transfer out. It was more of a family move to Maryland and Mr. Huff at defensive back. And next thing you know, this game is just and these games are like this all the time with Graham and Union. They're going to play again, probably Thanksgiving weekend for the region championship. I look forward to watching this replay on NFHS Network in the next couple of days when I have a little downtime to do so, watching some college football and pro football. But they do it right out there, and we need to copy them more. Whether you're in the 703, in the 804, the 757, the whatever area code. Go look at what Graham and Union are doing out there in Southwest Virginia and mimic them more, okay? They have a different level of passion, enthusiasm that I just don't feel is where it needs to be in other parts of the state. And I'm not saying we don't have good athletes, good coaches, good fans. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it. They're knocking it out of the park, and we need to knock it out of the park in every other portion of the state like they are out there. That's all I'm saying. And listen, you can like me, hate me, scream at me, tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you, go watch the game. Better yet, go make that trip if you're not there. Go check it out. It's a different level of excitement for those folks. There's no question about it. A couple more games I will get to after my hats hits conclude here, and maybe you can interact with me. Any questions you got, comments, thoughts you got, we'll certainly pop them up on the screen if you have anything, and we'll take it with you here. As I see, we're going to get to number 5 here. We'll put it up on the screen. I'm glad he's actually coming and watching this. We got Mr. Jeffrey Overton Sr. Hey, Jeff. Glad you're watching. Hope Junior had a big night. I'm sure he did. And the Hayfield Hawks and the Maury Commodores are number 5 on my. There you go, Bird Athletics. You're dead on. Graham Beaver, best atmosphere in the state. Listen, they got it right out there. The Graham Bluefield game. I interviewed on radio a few years ago. Oh, gosh, this is where I'm getting old. I'm forgetting who it was that came to Old Dominion from Graham. Oh, please forgive me. It's late. I'll think of it as soon as this live ends. I guarantee you. Oh, gosh, who was it? Anyways, I asked him about it, and you could just hear it in his voice. Different level of enthusiasm. And there are rivalry games. I get it in every part of the state. I get it. But it's different out there. 15 20,000, no question about it. You are spot on. People are, they are rabid fans. And you know what's sad is we still have some on our message boards on Virginia Preps. They've taken it to social media, but every snap, you're right, the school gets out early, tailgate, the town shuts down. It is different. We need to take teams. I don't care who you are. Listen, you can be Colonial Forge, Lake Braddock, Westfield, LC Bird, Maury, Green Run Peoples. I don't care who you are. Listen, they have a little bit out there in Salem, Virginia, but take teams from other parts of the state and put them out there for 48 hours. And let's see how they react. It'd be great. I'm not saying they wouldn't beat them. I'm saying I just want to see how they react. Let's get to my number 5 headsets. Oh, Junior did have a big game. 9 for 231 and 4 TDs. Hey, send me a message. I want to get his yardage and TDs for his career. I want to know where that's up to date because I've seen it reported different places. The numbers on. I want to have the official numbers so we can do the countdown clock on Junior as he chases some VHSL records. We talked about it with Autori Newkirk in my recent On the Hash with Hatfield podcast. If you missed that, go back and watch it because it hasn't been reported by any media outlets yet about where he is. Last year, he was 5th in single-season yardage. And by the way, I know Jeff Jr., who's committed to the Hokies at Virginia Tech. I know he was right there, set the Prince William touchdown record, but we're talking about state records here. And I put this out there. And I actually was in the parking lot. This is how this got started. I don't even know. I didn't get the guy's name. I was in the parking lot, Oscar Smith, Nansman River. Guy was getting ready to grab me by the arm. And I was getting ready to do my karate chop taekwondo moves. And he said, hey, and I get this from basketball too. How come we don't have a tournament of champions in Virginia like they do in North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, whatever state it is? And I can't give you a firm, full, total answer. I'm not here to say that VHSL's against it, condones. That's not what I'm here to get into all that. But I said it would really be cool. And my whole element to it is, and again, I get kids go off to college, new seasons for sports. Do you have officials? There's a lot of different red tape things. I get all that. But I've always been a proponent, do something with a charitable element to it. It can go to whether it be schools, go to some kind of cause, whatever it might be. But here's my thing. If we can't do the Tournament of Champions, which I would love for football, love it even as much, if not more, for basketball. Your Class 6 plays your Class 5, your Class 4 plays your Class 3. Knock yourself out. It would have been great last year if we had Freedom and Maury, if we had Phoebus and Liberty Christian, which we saw in a state championship a few years back before Phoebus moved up to Class 4, and your Class 1 and Class 2 titleists, which were Galax and in Class 2, Radford last year. This year, we've got number 1 in the state being not Radford. We've got Graham, we just talked about, and Essex, who lost that heartbreaker on a field goal at the end by a freshman for Galax. We've got Liberty Christian and Phoebus in 3 and 4, and we've got Maury and Hayfield. And if you're looking at scores, Hayfield just throttles Chantilly 70-0. I think Chantilly learned his lesson. Don't poke the bear. Don't put out a little missive, which I saw they did. And they did a good job 3-0 to start the year, but don't poke the bear. You poked the bear and you got poked back. More than poked, 70-0. And then when he didn't poke the bear, they just ran into Maury in a buzzsaw, which Highland Springs ran into last week, and a lot of people are going to run into in the coming weeks. We need that Maury we need that Maury Hayfield smoke. We need it. We're going to get Maury Green Run potentially, or Maury Kingsford, Maury Warwick. We'll get Hayfield against whether it's a Lake Braddock or a South County, maybe a Madison, who's got a darn good football team, got themselves the dub again as they took care of George Marshall. We see that. Maury like that. We need to bump. All right, you just heard it. Coach Overton, that's Daryl Overton's brother now, Jeff's daddy, Jeff Jr.'s daddy, assistant. Need that bump. We do need to bump. We need Maury and Hayfield. Let's make it happen. America wants it. The people want it. The Commonwealth want it. Let's make it happen. Put it on the docket for 2025, 2026. I mentioned it to someone today after a guy brought up to me last night. He wants to see that dream matchup because will either team get pushed to the brink, to the limit. And Maury got pushed its first game of the year now by Wise of Maryland, who had a head coaching change. They've won 6 state titles in Maryland. They got pushed to the brink. But will either one of these teams get pushed like this until the playoffs? And will they get pushed even like this in the regional championship, state, semi-state finals, assuming they get there? Which you can't take anything for granted, assume anything, because we're talking about teenage kids, number one, and injuries can pop up, and anything can blow this hole out of the water. I remember saying a dream matchup years ago with Indian River and Highland Springs, and Indian River ended up losing to Maury, and that began the Maury run of dominance under Jaree McCain here. But let's get these two to play a non-conference game. It can be the Virginia Preps Football Classic, not Basketball Classic, which we have coming in January. Do it next year to start the season. I'm sure it's a new cycle for schedules. You can do a 2-year deal. You can play it in a neutral site. I don't care where you play the game. It'd be great to see, because everybody's going to be asking now that I put this out there. I'm putting it out there in the atmosphere, and everybody else is going to take credit for having this. Maury and Hayfield is the matchup we're all clamoring to see at this point. We are. They're both just on a different level. They both have game breakers galore. When you talk about Jeff Overton Jr. and Juju Preston and the way Isaiah French is throwing the ball, and then some guys on defense that are knocking people out left and right. Braxton Hunt, Devin Reeves, those guys. Maury's got Kendall Daniels going to South Carolina, Ari Watford committed to Clemson, LeBron Bond going to Indiana, Carlton Smith going to Maryland. I'm going to leave people out. Autori Newkirk, the star quarterback, other players emerging like Ike Simmons at linebacker, who got an offer tonight from Delaware, David McDaniel Jr., who every time I see him make a catch or do something, I feel old as dirt because I covered his dad when he played with Percy Harvin at Lansdowne. And F3_Junie says, Hayfield and Maury are the only teams in the state that can compete with each other, man. LOL, everybody else doesn't have enough transfers. Well, look, that's the elephant in the room. There's transfers. We get it. We get it. There's transfers. But let's also say this, because I want to put this out there. They're not the only ones in the state with transfers. I can rattle off to you, and you can read my previews on Virginia Preps. They're not the only ones with transfers. We put who else transfers. They're not. It just looks that way, and it feels that way. Now, the amount of transfers and the significance of certain transfers, that's different. But they're not that. Let's get the story right. That's not the truth, because I can run down 15 to 20 teams in our top 10s that have multiple transfers starting on each side of the ball. I can tell you a team in Maury's district that has 4 offensive starters that transferred to them. So let's not tell that story. Just because they got the better guys that have come to them doesn't mean that's necessarily the case. So there you have it. We will see what happens. I like the comments. I'm having fun with them right now. Let's just put it out there, okay? You can like it, lump it. I'm not saying, one way or the other. But we need that matchup. So some quick thoughts so we finish up on this, because I could spend another 40 minutes on that, and it's late, and people want to go to sleep, and we'll have more on 757 Saturday Sports Talk, Cova Sports TV. We'll entertain any of your questions, comments, thoughts throughout the 2 hours, pro, college, and high school sports. I get what you're saying. I'm not saying you're taking a shot at anybody. You're good F3, Junie. And we're going to do our NFL picks, which, by the way, folks, someone needs to help me out with these picks. I've done so well the last couple of years on the picks. This is NFL now, not high school. I've lost 3 games the last 2 weeks by half a point. My Cardinals lose to the Bills. Should have won the game because the Bills are who we thought they were. We let them off the hook. The Texans and the Bears, bad beat galore. They fumble. Bears get a meaningless field goal, lose by half a point. And then the Seahawks-Patriots, 23-20, it's 3.5. Lose by half a point. I need a pick. Somebody give me a guaranteed pick so I can beat Ed Young, because if he wins, he will make me miserable for the entire winter into spring, and I can't live with that. Some other quick reactions to some games that caught my eye. Colonial Forge Patriot was a game that caught my eye. That was one that I thought was a toss-up. A lot of people were telling me they felt Patriot was the new team to win Region 6B. Since Freedom doesn't have the same crop of players, I said, well, hold the phone here. Can they beat Battlefield first? I thought Patriot would squeak by Colonial Forge, and they were winning that game. But Colonial Forge came back and won. Good win for John Brown and the Eagles, because they're going to have some tests that await them in the Commonwealth District. But getting to 4-0, they had to squeak by Woodbridge not too long ago. This is a big win for them to get that job done and beat Patriot in a high-scoring affair. Didn't have to rely on defense, 35-27, got the offense humming. Quality win. Outside of the Fredericksburg area, you had another one one more in the Fredericksburg area. I want to give a shout out because he didn't make my hats hits, and he probably should have tonight. New player on the scene as far as a guy that is really stepping it up and taking his game to another level is the running back at North Stafford. And what a night he had as they beat Briar Woods. That's a big surprise to me. 26-14. They got the W. Micah Brown, remember that name. More people need to be taking a look at him. 14 rushes for 245 and 4 tutties as the Wolverines take down the Falcons 26-14. I had Briar Woods high on my top 10 in Class 5. Both they and Stonebridge have been stumbling. It's looking more and more like with these results, Matoka, if there's going to be a team that sees, the team that comes out of Tidewater, whether it's Maury, Kings Fork, Warwick, Green Run, Indian River, whoever it is, Maury's presumed to be the favorite. It's looking more and more like we might see someone not out of Nova, like a Stonebridge or Briar Woods, and it could be a Matoka from Richmond, or dare we say, a William Fleming, who, again, put a hurting on its opponent tonight, Patrick Henry of Roanoke, who they knocked out last year in the playoffs first round, 8 seed, toppled a 1 seed. That began their renaissance here. Their turnaround under Nick Leftwich. They got the running back going to Syracuse. We highlighted on Hats Hits a couple weeks ago, and Malachi Coleman. And they were all over PH Roanoke, 41-13. Their defense is better than people realize. They've got some players in the trenches, and William Fleming is positioning themselves nicely in a region that I thought going into the year was Matoka, LC Bird, in the championship, and it still may very well be. But William Fleming, they're nothing to be played around with, that's for sure. 757 for a second. Props to Bruton. I had Barrington Morrison on the hash with Hatfield. They were trying to get to 4-0 to start the season for the second straight year, and they did that. They had 3 straight shutouts coming in, and they end up thumping Northumberland, one of the top teams in our Class 1 rankings, who's got a good quarterback, 42-12. I mean, my goodness. He's got some receivers. Brandon Freeman, 2-sport guy from basketball. Saw him up at VA Live in the Hoops event. And Anthony Henderson Jr., sophomore, D1 kid. They're making plays, and that defense is much improved. They get Grafton next week, who won tonight, but if they get to 5-0, that would snap a long Bay Rivers District losing streak for Bruton. All right, they can crack the rankings and get a little more juice going. That'd be pretty cool to see. Another game that was interesting, talked about 3 straight shutouts. Thomas Jefferson of Richmond. 3 straight shutouts coming in tonight. I was at this game in Portsmouth, 34-12 over the Norcom Greyhounds, who's got the most ballyhooed player on the field, and Matthew Outen, the Penn State commit. And what happens in this game? TJ just offensively went up and down the field. Rashad Cherry, the quarterback, 325 yards, 5 touchdowns produced, a 90-yarder to Amari Goff. And, man, pretty good stuff right there as they got the job done. Amari Goff, 3 catches for $180. Whew. Hard to deal with. They are right now. Really hard to deal with. And TJ's looking more and more like the favorite to come out of Region 3B. And dare I say, they could be the favorite out of the Class 3 portion of the state, Eastern Richmond, Tidewater, that portion that may get to see Liberty Christian. Looking mighty, mighty strong are they. What do you think about Glen Allen? Sneaky 4-0 right now, just beat Dale. Yeah, we just talked about that earlier. Go back and watch that. It'll be up on the YouTube if you're watching on IG Live. We talked about that a little bit. I like what they're doing. I didn't see them as a region semifinal or final team, but given the early question mark struggles of, say, a Highland Springs, and throwing their Dale now, Manchester isn't what they used to be. Oscar Smith is still young, although looking mighty tough on defense, and they beat them in the first round last year. Yeah, the Jaguars have really stepped it up, and they're better than I thought. I'll give them a lot of credit. They're going to crack the top 10 this week in Class 6, and I like what I saw out of them. A couple more scores just to go through that caught my eye as far as, all right, that's interesting. I'll be honest with you. I did not know if we would see, a big time blowout in terms of a couple of the scores with the Nova games, but Fairfax beating South County. It wasn't a blowout, but they got the job done. And I'm a little worried for South County at the moment. I thought they'd be a little further along than what they are. Madison, no shocker there. They're just humming along. Stafford, that's another team that's come out of nowhere. I didn't see them doing a whole lot this year, and here they are sitting at 4-0. Big win for them tonight, beating Independence 45-36. Fredericksburg. Some of the Fredericksburg teams are a little better than I think we probably initially thought going into the year. So there's a few of those that caught my eye. And I brought up the Green Run as our number 2, going back to the 7x7 for a second. Salem of Virginia Beach, they blanked Bayside, and here they are, chance to be unbeaten when they take them on in early October. So opportunities await. I think tonight a lot of statements were made. TJ of Richmond, they made a statement. Statement made by William Fleming, again, that they're going to be heard from in Class 5. If anybody needed a statement to be made with Madison, they made theirs. We know about what Morey and Hayfield do every week. They're making statements every week. Not really a statement when it's Union and Grand. That's a rivalry game out in Class 2. But there was a bunch of games that you felt like, all right, this team can take another step. Bruton in Class 2, I mentioned them in the Bay Rivers statement game, that they can now be seriously taken, as opposed to, all right, you're playing a bunch of smaller schools here. Well, not a bunch of smaller school, but they got a quarterback who's putting up eye-popping numbers. And so there was some statements made tonight. I thought Colonial Forge wasn't a statement, but good win, in Heritage Lynchburg. Really, really good win for them. So that's where we are right now. Curious to see if we get any more breakout teams or players that pop up here in the coming days and coming weeks as we move it into October to get ourselves to the midway point, because we are almost there. 4 weeks in the books. Hard to believe that is the case. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Hats Hits IG Live. We will be back on the air on Cova Sports TV. Tune in on Saturday. Like I said, we got NFL picks. We got a special guest with Greg Medea from the Daily Progress. He's going to join us around 10:45 a.m. Eastern, talk about college football. And we'll go through all the high school football content and interact with you. We've got a couple of surprises in the hopper as well. So have a great rest of your night. We thank you all for tuning in with us, and we will chat with you later on. So have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Saturday with 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV. Thanks for tuning in. Okay.